All right, welcome to Alabama Gristmill. It's good to be back. We had a little bit of a break there for the summer. Hopefully not too long, but we're back in business and with more stories of Alabama. I'm your host, Mike Causey. My co-host joining me as well, Donna Causey. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Got a little bit of a cold for some reason. I don't know why. It's summer. It shouldn't be that way.
The summer, you shouldn't get a cold.
Yeah, it's not good to have a cold when you're speaking over a microphone too. But I'll do the best I can.
Yeah, you tend to do pretty well.
I don't know.
What story were we talking about today? What story are you going to bring about today?
It's a story about the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps, and how Alabama was really started something for the married men. Because the CCC, a lot of people may not realize it. It was for just the single men. First, it was just for 18 to 23, and then it went to 17 to 28. But
I do know the CCC was very instrumental in the state parks of Alabama.
Oh, they were.
Pretty much that's why we have a program still today, is because of what they developed in those times. It was a good program. Yeah,
it operated from 1933 to 1942. And it was good for the unemployed and unmarried men needing relief. And it was part of the New Deal during Roosevelt's time. But it was important for them, and it really helped the young men and helped them get jobs and get on their way. But newly married people kind of were left out in the cold, and there's a lot of men that married during those years. So Governor Bibb Graves and Thad Hope decided they would try to help them out too. And they started the programs in Alabama with Washington's help. And they were the first two in the whole country.
Well, that's pretty good. Well, we'll have to hear more about that in a second. But before we get into that, we always mention that, we're totally doing this on a labor of love type basis. But we also support from our listeners and members of the Alabama Pioneers website. Patron, yeah. Mm-hmm. And they help us keep things going here. So any help that you can provide through that program or just a straight donation is very much appreciated. You can find all that information out on alabamapioneers.com and how to sign up for that and help us out there. So really do appreciate it. We also have a series of books that you wrote that my co-host Donna.
Yeah, I've got quite a few now, and they help out on the site as well. All these things go together to keep everything going and learning more about Alabama's history, things we may not have known. I know you learn some things about the CCC, and they've heard about it all their life. People have heard about it all their lives, really, but they were really just good programs. They may not know all the details, but this is kind of filling them in on it.
Yeah, well, let's just go ahead and jump right on into that and to hear the story of the basically the first two married CCC programs in the country.
That's right. They weren't part of the CCC, but people called it the Married CCC, and I'll get into that in the story.
All right. Well, we'll hear about it now.
Okay. As we said, there was a need for young married men to have opportunities as well. They were just as desperate as others, if not more so. So at the request of Alabama Governor Bibb Graves and Thad Hope, a new program for married men was started in Alabama. This program was the start of a rural resettlement program throughout the United States. It had many names over time, such as the Emergency Relief Administration, which President FDR created in 1933. It got the name of the Federal Emergency Relief Administration Program, or FERA, and in 1941 it was called the Farm Administration Program. It was later replaced by the Works Progress Administration Program, or WPA, and the Social Security Administration. According to a news article, the first two programs of this kind were in Alabama, one in Elba and another in North Alabama called the Cumberland Farms Project. The Cumberland Project name was later changed to the more familiar Skyline Farms, which we've written about before and on the website. The name was changed because there was a Cumberland Homesteads Project. There was a resettlement administration development in Tennessee. You can see pictures on the website and a film about Skyline Farms in Jackson County, Alabama, And you also can see another resettlement project in Gee's Bend in Wilcox County, Alabama on the website. At Alba, which was established around October 24th, 1935, it was, like we said, one of the two first married CCC camps, but it was not actually a CCC camp because of being married. It was under this separate program. The Alba camp was one of the first two that proved to be so successful that the government spread it throughout the country. It provided distressed young married persons with farm units, so young couples who have been married only a few years could actually start farming. Governor Bibb Graves and Thad Hope were the reasons that the program started. When the CCC camps were so popular throughout the country, they knew that the young marrieds needed something because they also needed work, and they were growing despondent. So they went to Washington to plead for funds to do something for young married people. Washington consented, thank goodness, and 2 camps were established in Alabama, and they were the only 2 in the United States at the time, that would allow young married people a place to start and begin a life in farming. The 2 camps were one was located at Alba and the other one at Cumberland Mountains or Skyline Farms. But both of them have no connection with the federal CCC, even though they were called married CCC camps. Land was foreclosed on by the Federal Land Bank during the Great Depression, and it was turned over to the Rural Resettlement Administration. And on this land, over a widely scattered area, modern farmhouses were constructed by members of the camp of married young people. Approximately 300 young men, ranging in age from 18 to 25 years, were recruited, and they were sent to the camps in Elba and northeastern Alabama. Under the direction of L.E. Ford, a contractor formerly of Birmingham, small farms were set up by the members of the camp and were built on a factory basis. Following completion, they were sold on a plan which, according to Ford, assured that the federal government would get their money back for each project. While the young husbands attended the camps and built the places, their wives remained at home or else moved near the camp. And at Skyline Farms, they moved into really desperate-looking shacks, awaiting the new homes that they would get down the line. You'll see a lot of those pictures on the Alabama Pioneers website, which tells about it. There's more. There's also a Facebook account on 5 Skyline Farms, which still exists today, so you'll learn more about it. During the enlistment of the men for a period of 6 months, they received $20 a month, 15 of it going to the wives and 5 to the boys for spending money. Ford explains, with virtually only green labor, boys straight from the farms, we are building these little farm homesteads made up of a house, a barn, a smokehouse, a chicken house, and an outhouse. The project is self-liquidating, and the government will get back every penny spent on it. The boys go into the forest, and incidentally, we cut only the trees where we can get the most lumber, so they were environmentally friendly too. In other words, a check is made at the mill to see what we would need. If we needed ceiling wood, we cut for ceiling. Only lumber that would provide the most ceiling was failed. That was to save the forest. I figure, and according to Ford, he said, I figure we are using 90% of each tree cut, which is amazing. So it was very efficiently handled. Each house was cut prior to being sent to the site. Each joist or door was made at the mill with the use of patrons, and the patrons helped the success of the program because they used green labor, and they used the patrons to build the different parts of the house. Instead of building the farm units in a colony, as is done in a number of other government units, they scattered the farms over in an area over 29 miles long and 24 miles wide. Maybe one unit would see 2 units within a mile of each other, and then again it might be 5 to 10 miles. And the reason that they did that was because they were, according to Ford, was they wanted to provide suitable land for farming. In other words, they said, we did not want to set up a family in a place where it would be impossible to produce a crop. The sizes of the farms varied. according to the fertility of the soil. For instance, if a farm wasn't rich, they just built a plain home with a bedroom and a kitchen. It wasn't the intention of building a nice layout with all the other houses and outhouses and tin houses where a family would only be able to make a living, therefore would be unable to pay for their labor. So they really sought out the good land to build the areas on. By July 29, 1935, there were 12 districts in Alabama under the new resettlement program. Each district had from 1,100 to 1,300 active cases at the time. So that's a lot of farmhouses that they had built. Families who had lost their holdings due to debts, illness, bad crops, or other causes could secure loans and supervisory aid in reestablishing themselves on a self-supporting basis. So many of those farms still exist and have been handed down to families. They've been paid for by the recipients and are still available and being used as farms today. So it's amazing the program and the success it had.
Well, that's fascinating. It's good to see Alabama, step up to help out the married, the people that still were in need and wanted to raise a family, and gave them somewhere they could get a job.
Right. And, the names changed, like I said in the story, to different things, and they even wound up with part of the Social Security being part of the name for it. But the beauty of this program is the people bought the land, and they all were able to pay back the federal government, that way. So that was what was great about it all.
Yeah, the whole overall program back in those days was just an excellent to help the country get out of the Depression era, and actually, everybody give them work.
Right.
Give them something to do. One thing I do want to mention is, with the CCC, we have some wonderful films that we found, because they were also active in recording all this back in the time of the Park Service and all that. We're filming them actually building the one I know of is Oak Mountain State Park.
Mm-hmm.
We have footage of that being covered, so it's really fascinating to see.
The park was on there too, different ones, and you might see some of the people that are family members in it too. Yes, it was an excellent program for a lot of people and saved their lives, really.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and wrap this story in this episode up of the Alabama Gristmill. Look forward to joining us next time on the next episode. We've got some good ones out there. And we'll let Red Foley play us out with a Alabama Jubilee.
Goodbye. See you next time.
Round on his toes, throws away his crutch and hollers. He let her go, oh honey.